Happy birthday! Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday to the United States. Uh, I am very glad to be able to be here and to be able to celebrate the anniversary of the birth of the country that I got to be born in and live in. This is our 246th birthday. And I want to say, first of all, the thing that is on top of people's minds is, yeah, we're struggling. We're having some hard times right now. And it seems increasingly so. Divided, we're having a hard time making good decisions and so forth. But I also just want to remind myself and everyone that the US is also pretty awesome. And one thing that we have going for us is that we are the world's oldest democracy. And that is a choice that was made 246 years ago. And it has brought us so many amazing benefits. There's prosperity and safety, and we have the rule of law, and we have all sorts of amazing freedoms. And the United States has become a leader in technology, whether it's AI or space, robotics. We're an educational leader, we're a cultural leader, we're a financial leader, and of course, a military leader. Sometimes we do good with that, and sometimes we get ourselves into trouble. But all of these things are the kind of benefits that are conferred on a population that says, let's take all of these diverse people and bring them together and let them lead the country. And that idea of bringing people from diverse perspectives and so forth and having them like really negotiate and work together in order to solve things is an amazing creation. Now, you might notice, like, the oldest democracy, are you sure? What about the Greeks? Didn't they come up with the idea of democracy? And they sure did. Two reasons why they're not counting as the oldest democracy. One is that Greek civilization has long collapsed. You've seen the Greek ruins, and that was from a different time. So that's one. That democracy is not currently functioning, though, of course, Greece has a democracy now. But then also, there wasn't totally a real democracy at the beginning. At the beginning, it was based off of, yeah, this is for the men and no women, no slaves, no barbarians, no foreigners, no poor people. There was a very much an exclusive democracy. I feel like that there's two lessons that we can learn from this that I think are kind of important. First of all, there's that question about exclusion and the collapse. So what do we have to say about that? First of all, the United States also was at the beginning, and so a little timeline here. 1776, that's the day we're celebrating today. That was the Declaration of Independence, the birth of the United States. The Constitution was brought into existence in 1789 is when it was actually started being used. So that was actually when we became a democracy. And at the time, it was very explicitly only for white land-owning men to vote. Now, there has been, however, amazing progress in the enfranchisement of our democracy. And in 1828, we let people who didn't own property start voting, still men and still white. In 1920, women were allowed to vote, for that's with the 19th Amendment. And in 1965, with the Voting Rights Act and the 24th Amendment, we finally got to a place where we wanted to have universal suffrage, or everyone has the right to vote, regardless of race or gender or ethnicity. Now, that means that we've only been doing like real democracy, where we really are having the people of our country making the decisions, for less than 60 years. I'll say that New Zealand gets the record for this one. New Zealand, since 1893, has allowed all women and all ethnicities, or all genders and all ethnicities, to vote in their elections. So they have a foot up on us on that one. We're actually trying to do this. We're actually trying, and so much of the frustration is that that's not going as quickly as possible or as well as possible. There's still a lot of problems. And the thing is as we're actually trying to be a full democracy, we're have like an interesting thing. If we start including everyone, and that's all the people on the left and all the people on the right and all the different colors and races and creeds and belief systems and perspectives, that means that we have this choice. We can either sort of try to tear apart in the sense of wanting to have one group be the dominant one or the other group be the dominant one. But it also gives us the capacity to harness the collective wisdom that comes from that diversity of perspectives. And so as we're trying to do this in earnest, that points out the other part. The Greek civilization collapsed. The Roman civilization collapsed. In fact, all empires before have collapsed. And there's this amazing, I think part of the reason why I think this choice about democracy is so interesting is because it actually goes against our human nature. Like, we all really get along better with the people who look like us and talk like us and think like us. We are evolved as humans as a tribal thing. So that's why it was such an amazing experiment to try to connect across all of our differences and try to be one unified thing. But the thing is, that's a choice that we've made to be a pluralistic, diverse democracy. And because it's a choice that we have to keep choosing. It's not going to hold itself together. And I would say that we're actually pretty vulnerable right now. And people talk a lot about whether or not democracy is at risk. And it is. And some real threats are we're seeing rights being curtailed for the first time, at least I can remember in my lifetime, but I think one of the first times in the US history are we seeing rights taken away. We also have folk that are really trying to disenfranchise people from voting. And we have less trust in the elections than we've had in the past. So those things are really scary. But that's not why I think we're vulnerable. I think that those are symptoms of a much bigger issue. That our democracy has gotten ourselves into this side wins or this side wins. Because when this happens, with this side wins and this one loses, or this one wins and this one loses. But the truth is, we all win or we all lose. That's the point of democracy. We have to be able to make sure that we're not dividing ourselves because it's actually the group that makes things work. And so, as I mentioned before, civilizations actually collapse, empires collapse. And I want to share with you this essay that I've been very interested in for a long time. It's called The Fate of Empires and the Search for Survival by Sir John Glob. Now, this was written in 1976, and this guy researched history of various empires and civilizations, and he found out that civilizations only last about 250 years. On average, 250 years. In fact, he breaks down the things here. Assyrian Empire, 247 years. Persian Empire, 208 years. The Greek Empire is 231 years. Ottoman Empire is 250. The Romanov was 234 years. The Spanish Empire was 250 years. 246 is our birthday today. That means that we're coming up on that number. Now, in this guy's book, when he researched all these different civilizations, he figured out that more or less from beginning to end, an empire or a civilization or a dominant power usually only is able to do that for about 250 years, and they go through 10 generations. So that means there's 10 25-year generations that more or less kind of clock how long an empire can hold itself together. And they go through 6 phases, as he writes about it in here. There's the pioneers, the ones with the patriots, the ones who sort of make the thing happen, the brand new empire or the new concept. Then there's conquest as they expand. Then there's commerce. They start dominating everything. Then comes the age of affluence. Once the commerce is going, then everyone starts making money, and all the energy starts focusing towards power and consolidating power. Then there's the age of intellect. As education increases, people just start getting smarter and start thinking more about other concepts than the actual thing. And the last stage is the Age of Decadence. I'm going to read to you what he says here about the Age of Decadence. Decadence is marked by defensiveness, pessimism, materialism, frivolity, an influx of foreigners, rise of the welfare state, and a weakening of religion. And this decadence tends to be due to too long a period of wealth and power, selfishness, the love of money, and the loss of a sense of duty. Now, I don't know if that sounds familiar to you, but those things all resonate with me. I also know that there's sort of a worshiping of celebrities that starts happening as we get to that final stage. So here we are. We're vulnerable. We're facing potentially the final age of our democracy. And we're in a moment where there's not a lot of trust in it. So this is a scary moment. Now, I have a couple ideas about how we can sort of hold this and start thinking about ways to think about it differently. First of all, there's an important dance between grievance and gratitude. Now, because we're in a democracy with freedoms and freedom of speech, we get to speak our grievances. We get to say, we don't like the history of slavery. We don't like the history of genocide. We don't like the history of colonialism. We don't like the history of all sorts of wars. We don't like the corruption. But there's plenty of things to have grievances about. But then there's also gratitude. Gratitude for all the wonderful things that we have. Remembering all the hard work that it took to get us here. All the lives that have been sacrificed. All the people who've been killed. All the effort that has happened for us to get here is a lot. And there's a profound gratitude that we can have. And there's something about the ability to celebrate even as we have our grievance. And honestly, those things go together. They're an excellent interdependent polarity, if you know what I'm talking about. Another polarity that is really interesting is this idea of participation and representation. I think one of the challenges that we're having right now is because the Constitution was designed to be a republic, so we're a representative institution. But the main concern that people have these days is government's not listening to me. They're not listening to what I have to say. They're not listening to my community. They don't care about my values, whatever they are. And so we're in this tension between citizens participating in the decisions and being represented. And honestly, that tension we can resolve as well. We can resolve it by having politicians that are interested in what their constituents actually have to say. And I'm not just talking about the ones that voted for them, but that whole spectrum. And how do we do that? We can still be represented and for them to still be listening to us as a society or as a community. And the way we do that is by recognizing that we need the diversity of experiences and perspectives to be part of all of our decisions. In a certain way, inclusion of all the different voices and all the different people and all the different perspectives is essential. And we need either the politicians to say, hey, I'm going to actually find out what the people have to say, or we need the people to say, hey, we need you to represent all of us. We would like to collectively come together and talk about this. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, isn't that kind of what we're doing? Isn't that a little bit like that? Listen, we actually have really amazing tools and processes that can have us get very, very diverse groups of people who really disagree and to get them to come together and come to a kind of consensus, or at least a kind of mutual agreement or a mutual willingness to move forward with a certain thing, with a certain idea. And that helps us actually be able to manage these crazy, wicked problems and complex issues and challenging things that we're facing right now, whether it be like the race or the environment or justice or globalization, whatever the issue is. Our collective intelligence will actually have better answers to it than any single representative or politician or individual or even one single political party. Now, we need to do this for two reasons. One, because having all those different perspectives actually makes us smarter. it's actually proven that multiple people thinking about a question are going to get better answers than just single individuals thinking about a question. In fact, the more perspectives, the more precise and effective and nuanced we can come up with solutions. So, in order to do that, not only do we need to start using these processes and start demanding it, but that means that we have to have a value that we are going to protect and we're going to assert our commitment to work together to serve all of us. Tom Atlee, a colleague of mine, calls the wise democracy the wisdom of the whole in service of the whole. Now, that sounds like something that I would like to see. Now, in case you're trying to figure out how to reconcile the scariness and the frustration and the fact that we have all sorts of possibilities, I want to remind you that this project we're doing as a country is an experiment. Again, it's only 246 years old. It might be the oldest democracy, but in the timeline of humanity, that's tiny, tiny bit of time. And guess what? The people who framed the Constitution, they knew this. And in fact, it's really worth remembering this. This is the preamble of the Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States. Now, of course, at the time that meant white men, landholding men. But now we can think about that as meaning all of us. And even saying that the people are the ones who make the decisions. That is so powerful. Anyways, the next line is, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And then it just goes on to say, we establish this Constitution of the United States of America. This line here, the more perfect union, is basically saying, we're not going to be perfect. We're not perfect, but we can be more perfect. And this is a process. And so I just want to remind you that politics is a process. Democracy is evolving. We are changing, and we are in a constant state of give and take and negotiation, and that is actually how this works and how it was built. And that is something that, I don't know, really helps me stay calm and saying, okay, we're doing better, we're doing a little worse, we're doing a little bit better, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, whatever way you want to think about it. We're in the process of evolution. We haven't gotten there. We're still trying to be more perfect. And in that spirit, I want to tell you about a project that I'm working on. So I have the Omni-Win project. If you're following me on social media, you have seen me talking about this already. The goal of the Omni-Win project is to accelerate the evolution of our democracy. Because I know that we have the answers to most of the problems that we're facing right now, and I want to share them with you. And so collective wisdom is something that's attainable, and I'm going to be bringing all of those people to you, and I'm going to be doing that in my new podcast, which I am launching on July 18th. You don't want to miss this. I'm starting out with my mentor, Kenneth Cloak, who is a wonderful leader in the world of conflict transformation, but then we're going to be talking about ideology and dialogue and race and economics and all the different things. I'm going to be bringing to you wonderful leaders and thinkers to help us think about how we can improve our democracy, move ourselves forward, and continuing to play out this dream that was born 246 years ago. And if we don't, it could be bad. It could be really bad. But I'm hoping that we can change it, and that's where I'm going to be putting my energy. And if you're interested in seeing what I'm up to, you should come check it out. So go to omniwin.substack.com, omniwin.substack.com, and there you can find my blog where I've been writing and making videos and essays, and that's going to be the best place for you to get the podcast once it comes out as well. So stay tuned. The Omni-Win Project podcast is coming soon to your earbuds, and we're going to see if we can figure out together how we can co-create the future the future that works for all of us, an Omni-Win future. Thanks for watching my video here. Happy birthday, United States. Hopefully, many more with ongoing growth and improvement. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.